Chapter 91 More than 600 slaves. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It is normal to have slow progress. Roman used lime to draw the foundation map of the future residential area. Just dig the foundation along the lime line with a shovel. 100 or so people can complete it, but the demand for bricks and tiles in Siggy Town is too great. Under Roman's comprehensive coordination, an average of more than 100,000 red bricks can be fired every day. For this purpose, he needs more than 1,000 people to participate in batch firing. The firewood burned every day is enough for dozens of tons, and the thick black smoke makes this summer even hotter, but they can bear it. These idiots know that the brick house is built for them, so they get up early and work late, and work very hard. They never dreamed that they would live in a brick house in this life, which is a small castle in their eyes, although Roman thought it was a rough house, not even plastered or puttied. And the wall bricks and stones were exposed and rough. The red bricks fired temporarily are of poor quality and insufficient strength. The bricks will peel off after only 2 years, layer by layer, and it will become more and more ugly in the future. The effect of clay and lime mixed with water is not as good as cement, but compared with civil engineering, it can be said to be strong and durable. It is no problem to use it for 20 years. The only reason not to use it is that it has been eliminated. As long as it is repaired regularly, it is impossible to collapse. Leakage is possible, but the leakage of thatched cottage is more serious, and the two are not comparable. After the preparation work of burning bricks is completed, the subsequent process is very smooth. Hundreds of laborers are busy carrying bricks and tiles, mixing mud and building walls. Although it was slow at the beginning, it only took half a day for the construction efficiency to improve with the proficiency of the masons. There is no technical threshold for the skill of wall building, especially the basic wall building technology. These days, any adult farmer knows the skills of mud wall. Once you are familiar with it, it is easy to master it. 6 or 7 masons can build the wall of a house in a day. It is not a problem for construction workers to lay 2,000 or 3,000 bricks a day. Therefore, more than 20 red houses are formed every day. And the progress is very impressive, because the construction is not difficult. You just need to build along the foundation and the wall should not tilt. Even if it tilts a little, it doesn't matter. The house is only 3 or 4 meters high, and it can be corrected by manpower and wood after it is built. If it can't be corrected, tear it down and start over. Anyway, it's your own house, and it depends on you to what extent you can do it. Roman is only responsible for providing architectural design and technical guidance. According to estimates, 500 brick houses will be completed in 2 months, and can basically accommodate more than 3,000 people, enough for everyone to move into the brick houses to live. If you don't want to move in, you can register in the new house and then go back to live in the hut. Roman suspended many developments during this period. This time was originally enough for them to build the road to the iron mine, make initial iron, and recruit soldiers. However, everything was delayed. If these idiots don't work for him wholeheartedly in the future, he will chop off their heads first. Construction experience +1. Construction skill upgraded to level 3. Level 3 construction, 1/770. Milestone unlocked, ash body. Ash body, obtain 1,000 original stones. The improvement of construction skills made Roman a little dizzy. This skill upgrade is useless to him now. Level 3 construction only allows him to build various bridges and castles. On the 175th day, a message came. Roman's brows relaxed immediately. Son of Selin, welcome to my territory. Roman opened his arms and hugged Morey on the dock. In this hot summer season, he didn't like to get close to others, as if he was hugging a piece of greasy fat, but this time he couldn't hold back his inner joy, because Morey resolved all his irritability. This enthusiastic action made Morey a little flattered. I thought something happened on the way. Morey smiled bitterly. The situation was turbulent and delayed for a long time. Roman was a little curious about the turmoil he mentioned, but he was more concerned about the goods that Morey brought. Without resources, he can only develop slowly. Urgent, but there is no way. If there are resources, it can be crazy speeding up. So Morey's arrival is like a shot of adrenaline for Roman. What goods did you bring me this time? Morey bowed slightly. More than 600 slaves, Lord Roman. I hope to meet your needs. Roman was overjoyed. Good. You didn't let me down. That he was originally planning to postpone the spring plan to next autumn. and now there are signs again, wait until all the slaves brought by Morey get off the ship, they are neatly dressed and crowded together, both men and women. Roman found that the quality of this batch of slaves is quite high, and no one fell down and got heatstroke under the scorching sun. He didn't have time to check, so he asked Morey to arrange for them to settle down. Roman said to Morey, "You did a good job this time. Just make an offer." Given the huge help this batch of resources would bring to him, Roman could make concessions in terms of interest, let alone asking for 2 silver coins per person. Even if it was 3 or 4 silver coins, he would agree immediately and would never bargain. He would give as much salt as he wanted. In his eyes, these people were much more valuable than 200 or 300 gold coins. Morey was not in a hurry to get the money, he said. "Lord Roman, these people are from the Sea Castle." Earl Bailey and Lord Byong had a conflict in the Sea Castle. The last lord of the Sea Castle died of the Black Plague 2 years ago and crossed the sea. Since then, the 2 nobles have been eyeing the Sea Castle. They each nominated a descendant of the family with the blood of the Sea Castle flowing in their bodies, hoping to take the throne. But there can only be one lord of the Sea Castle, and they refuse to give in to each other. Earl Bailey mobilized his 1,500 infantry and more than 50 war knights, and fought against Lord Byang's 2,000 Byong spearmen and more than 40 war knights. But in the middle of the battle, 800 mercenaries from the mud swamp joined the battlefield. Most of them were archers, who were hired by Earl Bailey and shot arrows from the flank to help Earl Bailey defeat Lord Byong. Lord Byong angrily accused Earl Bailey of having no noble spirit, and also hired mercenaries to fight back. They were determined to take the sea fortress, and they fought for 2 years, with both sides winning and losing. The people's livelihood in the sea fortress was in decline, and the long war made both sides unable to make ends meet, so they began to plunder the sea fortress's property and residents to restore their vitality. Morey briefly recounted the source of these slaves. Specifically, a lord died out, and the unowned territory attracted the competition of 2 other nobles, but after 2 years of fighting, they found that continuing to fight was a losing business, so they had to recover the losses. Since they couldn't rule, they plundered. These slaves were once residents of the sea fortress, and now it was destroyed beyond recognition. And they also fell into Morey's hands in this way. Roman took Morey arrived. At the Origin Manor, the maids brought desserts, cakes, cream strawberries, and iced herbal tea beer in the well for Morey to enjoy. Roman learned that there were many craftsmen among this batch of slaves, for example, leather workers, stonemasons, blacksmiths, and even a few were shipwrights. Even if such people became slaves, their prices were calculated according to gold coins, especially blacksmiths. Even if they offered 20 or 30 gold coins, it was not expensive. There is no doubt that this is a great gift. Roman sat on the main seat. His posture was calm. He sat sideways, looking at Morey, who was drinking herbal tea. "Is this why you have been delayed for so long?" Morey put down the water cup. He thought this drink was very good and might have sales potential, but it was not as valuable as beer. "I have never done slave business, but this is not difficult for me. It's just that the Grand Duke of the Wrath of the Sea has signs of mobilizing troops, which has caused many people to be uneasy. My caravan and I were reminded by the Chamber of Commerce to stay in Pearl Harbor for a long time to observe the situation and avoid complications. Raging tide, oak, and cracked armor, the 3 Grand Dukes of the Black Iron Land. Only the main force of the Holy See can unite the 3 Grand Dukes in this land. This has become the consensus of everyone. If they make a slight move, they will attract the attention of countless people." Chapter 92, Castle. Useless thing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Roman frowned slightly. "Your father, Selin, has a good relationship with Grand Duke Oak, so will he also be afraid of Grand Duke Fury?" Selin is a business counselor, which is equivalent to a noble among merchants. When the merchants of the Chamber of Commerce grow to a certain extent, they will seek dependents, or the church, nobles and kings, so as to obtain some powerful guards. Otherwise, they will encounter a scene similar to Dakin. According to Roman, Selin signed an agreement with Grand Duke Oak many years ago, using Grand Duke Oak's expedition knights to guard his caravan, and he provided them with rich rewards. Roman is not unfamiliar with this, because there are similar merchants in the Grand Dukedom of the Split Armor family. coming and going every day. His brothers and sisters occasionally work as caravan guards, but he chose to go far away. And those merchants in the Grand Dukedom would not come all the way to the wilderness to help him develop. Morey smiled bitterly and said, Grand Duke Oak doesn't care about a son of Selyn. And it is the son of Selyn after the separation. The fact that the great merchant Saran signed a contract with Grand Duke Oak does not mean that Saran's son has also signed a contract. If his caravan encounters the army of Grand Duke Raging Tide, it is equivalent to encountering the pirate Dakin, and he cannot use the name of Grand Duke Oak to intimidate them. Of course, Morey is not Dakin. The guards of professional merchants are usually private armed forces trained by them. Some of them are not inferior to the knights of war and are extremely loyal to the merchants, but the number is destined to be small, because merchants have no basic base and cannot afford large-scale armed forces. Even if they can afford it, if the scale of the armed forces reaches a certain level, it will attract the attention of the nobles. Do business, why do you train an army? Don't you want to be a leek? The nobles have power and land. As long as they can afford it, it doesn't matter if a baron pulls out an army of 10,000 people. No one will point fingers. What's wrong with me setting up an army of 10,000 people? Your question, my baron. Should we compare hands? Either you kill me and my territory is yours, or I kill you and your territory is mine. Nobles can play this way, but merchants can't. Morey's guards are the family separation fee given to him by his father. If they encounter pirates, they will fight to the death for Morey, but encountering the army of the Grand Duke of Fury is another matter. Roman understands Morey's concerns. He thinks Morey's caution is a good thing. If Morey is in trouble, then he can still only allocate these people. And there is no way to increase the population in the short term. He will be disappointed, but it is nothing more than postponing what needs to be done. It is only a matter of time for Roman to turn the table a year earlier or a year later. At most, he can keep a low profile for a few more years. Fortunately, Morey is more rational and knows how to avoid risks better than Dakin. Merchants have trade treaties with all nobles, paying high business taxes in exchange for a certain degree of security and insurance. This treaty will not be effective all the time. If there is a war, it is reasonable for the merchants' goods to be purchased by the noble army at a lower price. And even worse, they will plunder everything, in most cases. The latter is more common, and the merchant company will not make any compensation at all. This unspoken rule is also to advise ordinary merchants that if they do not have military relations or do business with military caravans, they should not hang around in front of others. Morey stayed in Pearl Harbor for a full half-month until the situation stabilized, and then he dared to set off again. During this period, Morey was responsible for the food, drink, defecation and urination of these slaves, which put him under great pressure. He had never traded slaves before. In this era, human life was worthless. The price could not go up, because transportation was a big problem. And the transportation efficiency in this era was extremely low. Slaves are not dead things like salt, iron, tobacco, alcohol, sugar and cloth. They cannot be stacked up and stored, and cannot be ignored. Slaves need rations. More than 600 people need at least 1,000 kilograms of food every day. Sanitation needs to be cleaned, and they have to be let out regularly, otherwise they will mess up his clean merchant ships. In contrast, Morey preferred expensive and light goods such as silk, linen, spices, wool, salt and steel. In fact, if Roman had not strongly requested, he would never let any slaves board his merchant ship except sailors and boatmen, but the Lord was so eager for slaves, he had to transport a batch of slaves. Then, the rumor that the Grand Duke of the Wrath had mobilized the army scared him half to death. Fortunately, the Grand Duke did not take further action, and all the turmoil gradually subsided. Morey successfully arrived in the town of Sgi and brought his slaves to Roman. Well, what reward do you want? Roman never spared wealth, especially for those who helped him. The mining of salt mines gave the town of Sgi a large amount of starting capital and provided all the nutrients needed for wild growth. In fact, every salt-producing area is extremely rich land, and many nobles will fight for a salt field until the winner is decided or a cooperation treaty is signed. Morey thought for a moment. When I came here, I saw you were doing a lot of construction. You built a lot of red brick houses. Roman's face turned ugly when he heard this. The heavy rain not long ago washed away the huts of those idiots. I had to build them stronger brick houses to prevent them from wasting my time every year because of this. He was very clear about the benefits of solving the problem once and for all. For future production efficiency, it would also be twice the result with half the effort. Living in a clean environment helps restore their strength and saves time in their lives. Of course, the only one who can make such a big deal is Roman. Not all territories can suspend production for 2 or 3 months. Whether building a house counts as production is debatable. Morey was extremely surprised. I've never seen any other noble do this. Because they are a bunch of idiots. Roman's attitude was contemptuous, and his words were as harsh and sharp as an awl. Morey never thought that nobles who could build strong castles and fight bravely on the battlefield were fools. He looked at the environment of the hall. It was spacious and bright, but it is indeed wooden. He made sure of it. This is just a manor, which is enough for a canonized knight. But it's a bit disastrous for a nobleman. All the people under his command will soon live in brick houses. Won't you build a castle? That the castle is a military fortification and a symbol of status. Its size often represents the local dominance and financial resources of the nobles. Castle. Useless thing. Roman was not interested in this, a large-scale construction project, spending a year or two, investing hundreds of gold coins, just to build a small castle. In Roman's opinion, this kind of behavior was simply taking off his pants and farting. He sat leaning on the chair, put his arms on the armrests, hummed softly, and clenched his fingers into fists. If anyone tries to offend my territory, I will destroy them and teach them to leave in defeat. If any noble dared to enter Siggy town, he would immediately stop all production, urgently mobilize everyone, and let them take shovels, pickaxes and hoes to join the battle. Siggy town is easy to defend but difficult to attack, and has natural geographical advantages. The tributaries of the Burrow River come from the Inlong Canyon. There is a river in front of the dock, and there are high mountains on the opposite side of the river, which means there is no broad foothold. The attacker needs at least 2,000 infantry to charge with a lot of life, otherwise they will never be able to land. But to transport 2,000 infantry, it depends on whether there are so many ships. Of course, if the visitor is a warrior knight, that's another story. If Roman hadn't taken action, 50 fully armed knights would be enough to destroy this land. In other words, things like fighting knights are unsolvable for today's Siggy town. Now with the slaves brought by Morey, Roman is confident that this problem can be solved before the end of winter. When the time comes, it will be useless even if there are 100 knights, not to mention 50 knights. Chapter 93 Expensive Friendship. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Morey finally made up his mind. Dear Lord Roman, I don't want any reward. Please allow me to make a request. I wish for your friendship. This request made Roman take another look at Morey. Why did you choose me? Businessmen have a higher social status and are considered to be in the same class as lawyers, judges, senior blacksmiths, senior carpenters and other professionals. The main characteristic of this class is that it has no power to protect itself. Only those governors of free city-states and members of commercial guilds can have equal dialogue with nobles. The nobles could not afford to support an army, let alone the merchant class. Mercenaries were unreliable, and war. Knights under nobles became the first choice of merchants. Therefore, businessmen will choose to gain the friendship of certain nobles and seek attachment and help. But Roman didn't have the strength to allocate to Morey. He regarded Green and Aaron as treasures, and Jeter and Dick had sensitive identities and couldn't be sent out. With Morey's conditions, it would not be difficult to find a big lord and earl. From any perspective, Roman is not the best dependent. Morey said frankly, I hope there is a way out. Sorling's children will all receive a comment from Sorling when they grow up. Selling's comment to Morey was that he was indecisive and difficult to achieve great things. Selling believes that Morey will miss opportunities because he worries about gains and losses before doing things. And it is easy to regret after doing something, always feeling that you have done something wrong, but this kind of walking on thin ice also made his life easier. Sometimes it is better to earn less and reduce risks. But his father believed that this mentality was destined to fail in achieving great things. Every time Morey thinks of this sentence, he feels like a lump in his throat. This comment has been with Morey for several years. Now, he feels that he can't go on like this. Big things don't have to be done. But your life must be saved. Roman chuckled. Do you think Sigtown can be your escape route? I don't see anything wrong with that. Roman didn't take much pleasure in the compliment. The so-called friendship of nobles is not just lip service, but also requires actual help. For example, if Morey gains Roman's friendship, he can do things under Roman's banner and badge in the future. Imagine a businessman going to do business in a strange territory. He said to the lord there, I am a friend of the Grand Duke of Rathtide, and I have his approval, and how would that lord treat him? He will receive all kinds of preferential treatment, and the lord will even lower business taxes as a result. The reputations of the three Grand Dukes are enough to allow merchants to travel unhindered throughout the Black Iron Land and even most of the surrounding countries. Because these businessmen were killed, the nobles who had given their friendship would never sit idly by, otherwise it will damage their reputation. Provoking a noble merchant was tantamount to provoking him himself. Of course, the degree of measures taken by the nobles will also be linked to the importance they attach to merchants. If a merchant gains the friendship of a certain baron, we can't expect the baron to attack the earldom because the merchant is being made trouble by the earl, right? The most I can do is to denounce it and wait until I have the opportunity to settle the accounts in the future. A qualified businessman will have many nobles as friends. If he touches these merchants, he will be at odds with those nobles. If he provokes a few more, they will form a coalition and rob you. Roman didn't know what advantage his reputation could give Morey. Among the three great kilometers, Grand Duke Split Armor has the most business friends. In recent years, some businessmen do not even need to meet the Grand Duke of the Split Armor. They only need to pay a friend fee worth hundreds of gold coins to become popular with the banner of the Split Armor family. 1 or 2 are scarce resources and deserve attention, but if there are more than 10, it will become a disaster. Before Roman left the Grand Duke's territory, he even heard that a businessman was forging the flag of the Grand Duke of Armor to defraud him. Anyway, it is difficult for nobles everywhere to distinguish the authenticity from the fake. The heirs of the Grand Duke of Split Armor were filled with indignation. RNM. Pay the money. Roman only found it funny. He said to Morey, my friendship is very expensive. Roman thought so. Even now his reputation is unknown and hidden in the wilderness. But he still feels that he is noble, and he is the only one in heaven and on earth. Morey looked embarrassed. He thought that the discounted high-quality slaves would be enough to exchange for Roman's friendship, but it turned out that he failed to do so. But now that I have spoken, I cannot retreat. Morey was a bit stuck, so he had to say, you can make your request. Roman smiled lightly and said, send me at least 300 slaves every month. This request directly made Morey's heart stop beating. 1 slave was worth 1 silver coin, and 300 slaves were worth 30 gold coins, and this is just ideal data. In the northern lands, coastal areas, eastern plateaus, western forests, everywhere in this land, human life is quite low. If a human life can be exchanged for 10 kilograms of salt, or 5 kilograms of iron, or more than 100 kilograms of wheat, then they will not hesitate to use the stones in their hands to smash others to death or capture others. The more cold and miserable the place, the more so. But can it be exchanged? Obviously it can't be done. Dead people are worthless, living people are precious, and the transportation costs are too high. Those low-quality slaves didn't even deserve to be on the ship. This agreement means that Morey will allocate half of his merchant ships to transport these slaves. If there are any setbacks, he will even have to mobilize all merchant ships, and he doesn't like to transport slaves, especially since the Black Iron Land has been stable for too long, and there has not been a large-scale war for a long time. The demand for slaves is not that great. Unless they are special slaves, slave traders can basically only make small profits in the Black Iron Land, not huge profits. Moreover, it doesn't mean that having slaves is equivalent to qualified labor. If you are too harsh on those slaves, they will either be rotten or riot, and die in front of you in a minute. If Roman needs a few slaves, he can always find them by walking around. To purchase in large quantities, he can only go to war-torn or impoverished areas, contact the slave traders there in advance, and then trade. This requires a distance of thousands of miles. If it is transported by land, how many carriages are needed? Otherwise, if the slaves walk, how many days will it take to travel more than 1,000 miles? Can they walk 50 miles a day? How much food will be consumed during the period? Do you have the energy to walk if you don't have enough food? Water transport is fast, but you have to board a sailing ship and paddle against the current. When you encounter an unconnected river, You even have to lift the boat across. It's like, what if two railroad tracks don't connect? Just lift the train across. A ship is much lighter than a train, but how many slaves can a ship carry? Why not transport other goods with this time? The freight sometimes even exceeds their own price. The fruits in some orchards can rot in the fields, while some people can't eat the fruits. What's the reason? If Morey agrees to this treaty, it means that his caravan is tied to the town of Stur. In the future, he can only carry out the slave trade in the town of Stur, and he may not be able to complete this task. It is difficult for Morey to accept this condition. He is a businessman looking for friends, not a wild dog looking for a master. But Roman's next sentence dispelled Morey's concerns. You can also help me contact other slave traders. As long as you regularly deliver slaves to me, I will also increase the purchase price. It's not freeloading, it's acquisition. Instead of letting his caravan do this, he could act as a middleman. Morey realized belatedly that his heart had started beating again. Chapter 94, Lost Face. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The friendship of nobles is not a verbal agreement, but a paper contract. Morey took out the contract. Roman found that the young businessman came prepared. The terms of the contract clearly stated the scope of responsibilities of both parties. If Morey was in trouble, Roman would help Morey through the difficulties. This help could be identity assistance, protecting his safety, or even mobilizing troops to support him. The last condition was very terrifying. This meant that no matter who captured Morey, Roman would have to save him from the water and fire. Of course, the friendship between most merchants and nobles did not reach this point. At most they would condemn him. The result of mobilizing troops was not something that all nobles could afford. Generally, it was limited to the first and second clauses. Merchants could use the nobles' coat of arms and flags, and could also provide a reliable source of guards. And, if Morey was politically persecuted or fled to the town of Stur for other reasons, Roman would unconditionally protect Morey's safety until he was out of the limelight. As a price, Morey had to contact slave traders from all over the country and deliver at least 300 slaves to Siggy town every month. If no slave traders could be found, his caravan would undertake the transportation task. Roman would pay money or salt to buy these slaves. This was a contract that satisfied both parties. Finally, there was a way out, Morey thought. He was very sure of this. No matter what kind of storms and turbulence the outside world would cause, as long as he came to Siggy town, everything would be fine. All the changes and wars in the outside world could not affect him. The environment here and the rulers here made people feel so safe. Morey felt that even if the church forced him, the heir of the Lieja family would not hand him over. Imagine that a lord made all his subjects live in spacious and sturdy brick houses. What would his attitude towards his friends be like? Would he be more demanding than his subjects? My father said I couldn't do anything big, but I didn't think about doing anything big. I just wanted to save my life. Morey carefully put the thick parchment contract into his arms. Roman was also very happy. This meant that the town of Seg had a stable source of population every month. All the troubles and worries he had accumulated over the past few days were swept away, but the price of this ship of slaves still had to be given an accurate figure. He asked Seth to take Jimmy to negotiate the price with Morey. This was a rather tedious process, because the slaves brought by Morey were of high quality. They recovered very quickly in just half a day and could be directly put into work, greatly improving the construction efficiency. Roman, however, expanded on the basis of the new residential area, from 500 brick houses to 800, almost doubling, and he was thinking about the benefits of once and for all. The residential area that could originally accommodate 3,000 people has grown to 5,000 people, which is convenient for accommodating future new population. As long as Morey fulfills the agreement, there will be plenty of labor in the future. The residents of Seaburg were quite depressed after becoming slaves. They originally thought that they would live a relatively bleak and failed life in the future, but soon, they were surprised to find that this was not the case. Although they had to live in those resettlement houses temporarily, after communicating with the residents here and former slaves, they learned that this huge complex of buildings was built for them. If they had known earlier, most of the houses in the city of Seaburg were only wooden and stone structures, not solid brick houses. Brick houses in Seaburg mean that even if there is a strong wind, there will be no creaking sound, and there will be no risk of the roof being blown off. But only noble lords can afford to live in such stone buildings, which will not collapse after hundreds of years. after receiving a clear answer. These new slaves, with a different mood, devoted themselves to the busy construction process. Just like all the laborers here, they eat the same meals every day, work at dawn, rest for 4 or 5 hours at noon, and pick up tools to continue working in the afternoon when it is not so hot. Although this kind of life is monotonous, the progress of construction is visible to the naked eye. It was a rainy day on the third day when Morey came to Siggy Town, and light rain fell from the dark sky. Because the temperature dropped, they did not even rest, but gathered spontaneously and went to the construction site to work in the light rain, and on that day, because there was no torture from the high temperature, within one day, those increasingly skilled masons built the red walls of 50 buildings, brick movers moved bricks, mud mixes mud, and various ox carts and horse carts came and went to transport building materials. Morey finally calculated the value of all the slaves in Siggy Town and was fortunate to see this miracle. He was dumbfounded. He did not expect that the work efficiency of these farmers and slaves would be so high. Morey thought, if the farmers under the nobles were also so efficient, would their castles still need a construction period of several years or even decades? The supervisors used whips to whip their bodies, leaving them with skin and blood, but why couldn't the construction efficiency be improved? He became more confident in the town of Seg. Morey was sure that if someone wanted to destroy those buildings, if someone took away the brick houses they had worked so hard to build, if someone took everything away from Roman Liegia, then everyone in Siggy Town will take up arms to resist. Unless a large number of knights come, the conscripted army will not be the opponent of this group of angry farmers. He waited for the light rain to pass, and then prepared to set off. It was also on this day that a fleet floated from the direction of Silver Dragon Canyon, with a flag flying on the ship, and a thorny iron tree embroidered on the flag, because the dock was crowded with Morey's merchant ships. It took the fleet a long time to adjust its position. You really should renovate the dock. It is the face of your master, and you have made him lose face. The disembarker complained to Seth. His facial features are somewhat similar to Morey, but younger. Hose Perea had come to Siggy Town twice before. He and the lord here did salt and iron trade, but he still couldn't adapt to the dock of Siggy Town, and it was shaky when he stepped on it. The wood in the river was rotten beyond recognition. He was afraid that the cracked wood would break in the next second, causing him to fall into the water and lose his dignity. Seth asked, "What is the dock of Taishu territory like?" "Of course it is very wide. There are more than 10 docks in the port of Taishu territory. They are lined up in a row, and the ships coming and going never stop." When Haas talked about the grand occasion of Taishu territory, he couldn't help but straighten his chest. Little Jimmy next to Seth muttered, "There must be a lot of people walking around in front of the face of the master of Taishu territory every day." Haas's expression froze. Chapter 95 Morey's Brother. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As expected of his student, Seth nodded imperceptibly. It was their duty to maintain the dignity of the Lord, and the latter's understanding made him quite worry-free, but business still needs to be discussed. Seth changed the subject. "How many iron ingots did Mr. Haas bring this time?" "This time there's a lot of volume." "Is Morey here too?" Haas was bored, and then looked at the merchant ships next to him. He recognized the boatmen and guards on those ships. "Mr. Morey is having lunch with Mr. Roman. I haven't seen your mysterious master twice here, but my brother can eat with him." Haas was dissatisfied. He felt underappreciated by this remote town. He went through all kinds of troubles to pull the iron ingots from Taishu Ling to Siggy Town, and had to pass through the rapid Silver Dragon Canyon on the way. If it weren't for his brother's wiring and bridge, he would never have come to this remote place. But now you can't even see the local lord. Even the heir of Archduke Splitting Armor shouldn't treat him with such contempt. Seth immediately frowned, and this slight movement more than doubled his sense of solemnity. The wrinkles on his face were deep and distinct, and he said in a serious tone, "Is Mr. Haas here to discuss business, or is he here to meet Mr. Roman?" Haas was startled by his attitude. It was like meeting a tutor when he was young. He had an unquestionable sense of majesty. "Of course we are here to do business." Haas was a little unsure, but he felt it should be so. The flag of the iron tree collar was flying on his ship, and this was just a small place. Shouldn't he be welcomed warmly? "Then it doesn't matter to you whether you see Mr. Roman or not, does it?" This time I have another business to talk to Lord Roman in person. Oh, what business do you have to talk to me about? While the two were talking, a word floated from a distance, and the voice was very calm. Haas looked towards the source of the sound and saw a young man wearing linen short sleeves and trousers. He walked over calmly and had an unusual demeanor. In just a moment, Haas felt that he was frightened by those cohesive red eyes. This is the sign of the armor-splitting bloodline, he heard the voice in his heart telling him. Haas originally had various dissatisfactions, but after meeting Roman, these dissatisfactions dissipated. Dear Lord Roman, I am Hos Perea who brought you the iron ingots. Roman came here to see Morey off, but he didn't have a good impression of his brother. He hummed and said, Tell me what you want, Mr. Haas. Haas saw his brother Morey, standing next to Roman, but there was nothing to reminisce about at the moment. He said directly, As far as I know, you can produce a honey that is as thick as honey but has a sweet smell like malt. Right. Haas swallowed his saliva and said, Lord Al of the Iron Tree territory tasted this delicious food. He praised it greatly. When he learned that the maltose came from you, he entrusted me to come and buy some. Then I'll give him a bucket. Roman didn't take it seriously. I'm very happy that you came here, but my blacksmith shed stopped working for 2 days because you came too late, and I'm very unhappy. Haas was stunned. His goal is more than just a barrel of maltose. Although my words were tactful, they were still simple enough. Shouldn't you be asking me how much maltose I want to purchase at this moment? Haas faced Morey's death gaze and continued, I hope to purchase maltose in large quantities. You also know that those noble ladies and beautiful girls all like the sweet taste. Roman nodded and said, I won't sell it to you. Haas was stunned again, suspecting that he had heard wrongly. He thought for a moment. I can pay a higher price than Morey, he said. Roman looked at Morey. Is this your brother? Morey felt embarrassed for Haas, but he was a little happy at the moment. He tried hard to suppress the smile on his lips, lowered his head and said, It's my useless brother. Roman nodded slightly, squinted his eyes, and said to Haas, Is this how your father Selin taught you to do business? Haas was scolded by Roman, and his face turned blue and white. He was embarrassed and didn't understand why Roman wouldn't sell him the maltose. The honey is golden in color, crystal clear, and as sticky as crystallized amber. Its appearance is valuable. Now the price of each barrel has soared to 2 gold coins, and the supply exceeds demand. 1 silver coin can only buy more than a pound of sugar, which is almost as expensive as honey. The nobles rush to buy them like crazy. No one knows how much Morey earned. There is no doubt that maltose has become the hottest commodity in the market. He deduced the origin of maltose, and received Roman's personal recognition, but he did not expect that Roman would reject him. It shouldn't be. There is no reason for the little lord of this poor place to refuse the gold coins he received. I gave Morey exclusive rights. If you want it, go find your brother. Roman paid little attention to the prospect of maltose, a dispensable luxury. Morey's sales seem to be booming simply because there is no competition and the novelty is temporary. Nobles would buy it at a high price if they wanted it, and it might have caused some trends. Ladies and ladies followed it one after another. They wanted the taste and blew the pillow wind, and sales increased. In fact, it's just bullshit. It is not worth mentioning the development of Siggy Town. What he lacks now is not sugar coating, but metal shells. Roman is more concerned about other issues. How many iron ingots did you bring me this time? 5,000 kilograms of iron ingots. Haas had to give up this idea. I should have arrived in Siggy Town a month ago, but because of the Grand Duke of Angry Tide, Earl L banned all iron ingot exports. My merchant ship was also stopped, even if I got Earl L's friendship. L is the Lord of Iron Tree territory and a vassal of the Grand Duke of Angry Tide. That land has rich iron ore veins and grows some strange iron trees with extraordinary properties. The Iron Tree territory produces about 200 tons of iron ingots every year, but most of the steel is digested by the Grand Duke of Angry Tide, and the iron ore output continues to fill the appetite of a terrifying giant beast that chews iron and gold. The remaining iron ingots belong to him in exchange for the materials needed to meet the needs of the people of Iron Tree territory. Even so, Iron Tree territory is much richer than other places. and Earl L's army is all armored. Lands like Iron Tree territory are only one of the sources of steel controlled by Grand Duke Fury Tide, not all of them. The Grand Duke is powerful, with many soldiers and generals, and it is easy for him to fight against a kingdom alone. Some people think that only oak and cracked armor can fight against Grand Duke Fury Tide, but this assumption is meaningless. Everyone knows that the three Grand Dukes are in collusion. In the blood battle of Silent Valley 100 years ago, they stood in front of the Vatican army and advanced and retreated together, defeating the Pope's plan to march west in one fell swoop, and suppressing the main army of the Church in Sinno, unable to cross even a little bit. Chapter 96: The Future Era. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The movements of the Raging Tide Archduke are unknown. Earl Eyre had to take precautions and stop selling iron ingots. When this wind hit Roman, Morey's caravan arrived half a month late, and Hoth's caravan arrived a month late. How much development time was wasted? It wasn't until Earl Al received a clear order that he was willing to release the iron ingots that had already gone to a clear destination but had yet to set off. Count Al asked me to bring you a message. Hoth knew he shouldn't say it, but he did it anyway. The situation will be turbulent in the future. If you still want to get these high-quality iron ingots, the price in Iron Tree collar may be increased. Roman only glanced at him lightly. There was no surprise or anger in his eyes, only calmness and gaze. Hoth's heart suddenly tightened. He was originally going to make a show of his temper, but at this moment he didn't dare to pretend to be a bully. He hurriedly explained. No matter who the acquirer is, the price of all iron ingots will rise. These were the original words of Earl Eyre. Those who are far-sighted are aware that a turbulent era is coming. This is not targeted at anyone, but an era that everyone will face. Roman raised his chin and said, then this will be our last transaction. Hoth stared at the decisive young lord with wide eyes and disbelief. When he abandoned the business contract, his attitude was like throwing away an insignificant item, but that's not trivial, but iron. Raw materials for swords, arrows, spears and even armor. Absolute hard currency in this land. If it were not suitable for currency, the most popular thing now would be iron coins. More important than food most of the time. Do you know what you are talking about? How many years will these iron rods I brought you last? It will wear out in 2 years at most. Let me see what you use in 2 years. If my good-for-nothing brother hadn't contacted me, and if I hadn't been able to make a fortune, why would I have brought the iron ingots from Taishu to you? Is it because you produce salt here? Okay, maybe add some maltose. If you give me the right to sell maltose, I can get you a special price. Hoth didn't know what he was talking about. Roman's reaction was completely beyond his expectation, whether it was maltose or his attitude when he heard that the price of iron ingots had increased. When he came, he planned to use maltose to persuade Earl Eyre to offset the rising price of iron ingots, and he would be able to make a profit from it. In the past, 25 kilograms of iron ingots were exchanged for 500 kilograms of salt. In the future, 30 kilograms or 40 kilograms of iron ingots will be exchanged for 500 kilograms of salt plus a bucket of maltose, but Roman ignored it. He has little interest in long-term buying of iron ingots per se. If Earl L wants to increase the price, and Roman doesn't agree, then they'll break up. That's what he had in mind, and whether the price will be increased or not is secondary. The deal ends here. These iron ingots will definitely be enough in the short term. As for the long term, if iron could not be smelted within a year, he would go to the sword-forging furnace. Roman asked Seth to arrange for manpower to unload the iron ingots from the Hoth ship. There are other goods in the cabin as well. Qualified merchants can make good use of all the space in a transport ship and carry dozens of types of goods. 5,000 kilograms of iron ingots cannot even fit into the space of a transport ship. After Roman got those iron ingots, he selectively purchased other goods from Hoth, which were all materials used for development, but Hoth showed little interest. Those linen and fur businesses were not very profitable. They could only watch helplessly as Morey's crew unloaded barrel after barrel of maltose from the carriage, carried it on their shoulders, and loaded it into the cabin. He counted carefully and found that there were hundreds of barrels, filling the cabins of 2 merchant ships. The sources of sugar in this era were very scarce, and the noble lords only levied a symbolic sugar tax and did not regard sugar as a qualified taxable commodity. When he thought of the huge profits, his eyes turned red with envy. Putting aside transportation capacity and manpower, this is nearly 100 gold coins. Morey, damn you, you actually got so much candy. Haas whispered bitterly. Seeing Morey make money is even more uncomfortable than losing money. Morey glanced at Haas, unmoved by the vicious curse he uttered. The businessman has heard worse insults. They deal with elegant and decent nobles, and also do business with the despicable and cunning lower class, whose vulgar swear words can be called the art of language. If you want it, get it yourself. Morey, you are just an indecisive coward, and you will never accomplish anything big in your life. Haas said sarcastically, of course, if you want to give it to me at cost price, then I will look at you with admiration. Morey said cheerfully, you know the family rules. Haas's expression was ugly. I will not beg for mercy from you. Don't forget, Morey, I am the person that my father values most. Morey didn't continue the nonsense with Haas. This time he transported 100,000 kilograms of salt directly from Siggy town, and only had to pay Roman 100 gold coins. It was really helpless to transport so much this time, because he needed to use the salt to find connections, was brought 5,000 jeans of iron ingots and also transported 100,000 jeans of salt. Morey knew that even if he didn't get the maltose, Haas would still be making a lot of money. This batch of salt would be enough for him to digest for several months. Roman told Haas that if he wanted to take salt away from Sig town in the future, he would have to exchange it with real money, silver, or slaves. This is also an incredible temptation. A stable, high-yield, high-quality salt mine has unparalleled temptation for businessmen. This is because not all merchants can purchase large amounts of salt at all times, and salt merchants will never be overrun. Otherwise, it will only disrupt everyone's business, and certain key channels need to be opened. Without connections, merchants would not be able to purchase salt, and this was true of any salt-producing area. This is a tacit agreement among the nobles to harvest the wealth of the earth, but Roman developed wildly and made money crazily, and didn't care about this at all. He felt that all the nobles were idiots and there was no need to maintain the so-called tacit understanding and rules. He wanted to turn over the table on the spot and smash them all to pieces with one punch. The two caravans left Siggy town one after the other. The river gradually widened. Haas stood on the bow of the boat and asked Morey from a distance, Morey, where are you going? Iceland. How dare you go anywhere? He couldn't help but shudder when he heard this. Those brutal pirates will jump on your merchant ship, rob you of all your goods, tie you up and hang you on the ship's mast, and extort you. Don't expect me to pay you a ransom then. Those pirates will exploit you. If there is no oil or water, I will definitely cut off your head and kick it into the sea. Haas smiled a little reluctantly when he thought of the brutal and bloody scene. Morey glanced at his half-brother speechlessly. Haas may seem arrogant, but he is actually a bit timid. I'm not planning to go to the hinterland of Iceland. I'm just going to contact the slave merchants there. Lord Roman asked me to send him 300 slaves every month. You don't have to pay me a ransom. Haas was immediately moved and said, you got the split armor family, but he is just a feudal noble and is not qualified to grant you the split armor flag. You got his own flag. Damn it, you actually did such a stupid thing matter. No one wants to get to know a small nobleman without looking for a big nobleman, right? You are such a fool. How far can his name spread? It can't even spread to the land beyond the Burrow River. His friendship dispensable to you. Do you think that shitty place has any potential? Their lord won't even bother to repair the docks. Even if it can produce salt, what's the use? The salt mine will not only bring wealth, but also attract the covetousness of other nobles. Earl Al has the Iron Tree territory, so he doesn't care about it. But that doesn't mean that other nobles don't want a salt-producing land, especially the nobles from other salt fields. Just wait and see, if the Archduke of Armor Splitter doesn't intervene, they will be the last to outfight their next year. The total amount of iron ingots I transported was only more than 10,000 kilograms. He couldn't even form an army of more than 500 people, and he couldn't even afford armor. Morey, you must be crazy. You actually agreed to transport slaves to such a small noble. Do you know how heavy a burden this is on you? If those slave merchants cannot arrive in Siggy Town in time, you will use all your strength to get this done. Haas chattered. Under the scorching sun, I feel like a noisy fly flying above the Burrow River, lingering in my ears, which is annoying. Morey was unmoved. Haas said he was crazy. Call him stupid. Maybe. This was an incomprehensible act for Hoth, who had gained the friendship of Earl Eyre and was able to trade steel. In order to gain the friendship of a small nobleman in a remote area, he actually made this level of sacrifice. This meant that he had no time left to manage the friendship with the second noble, and Morey also knew what a ridiculous thing he had done. Selling's comment to him was that he was indecisive and difficult to achieve great things. The criticism given to Haas was that it is too sharp and too much is too little. Those long classical words condensed roughly mean this: the Selling children can only get a starting capital when they reach adulthood, and then go out to work alone. The most outstanding child will inherit all the inheritance of the great businessmen Selling in the future. Therefore, Haas pursues the highest profits all the time, sparing no effort to defeat other competitors, hoping to become the successor, and Morey is always looking for the safest environment. Morey and his brother have nothing in common, except for business overlap. They will cooperate with each other, but in essence they are competitive, fierce enough to steal each other's business. Morey knows what he's doing. Ever since the witch named Shasta left his caravan and became famous in the northern land, a certain alarm bell in his heart kept ringing day and night. A troubled time is coming. The gods looked down on the earth, and the swords of kings and popes were shining. The princes are everywhere, and the knights are charging. Pirates are carnivaling, barbarians are dancing, and witches are daggers in the shadow. Sparks flew, war spread, and blood flowed. This land will usher in a dark age of turbulent waves and treacherous waves. Every time Morey thought about that scene, he would tremble like a fish swimming before a storm. He swam forward with all his strength, just to catch a ray of light from that era that was about to pass away, but he swam too slowly and the sea was too wide, so he returned without success. He could only watch the dim light in the haze rumble away like thunder, while the darkness behind him pursued him. That's too late, that's too late. He could only flip his tail, leaving a tiny ripple on the vast sea, and then turned around and disappeared into the deep sea. He must find the safest shelter before the dark age comes. Single chapter. You are listening at novelfull.audio. First of all, I would like to thank the leader of the Reward FFF Group's torch. This book's performance is not good, but I am satisfied with getting 1,000 points. At present, I am still halfway to the final goal. I didn't plan to post a single chapter, and I didn't want to communicate, but the brother is so generous, so I'll take this opportunity to talk about some problems. First of all, there is no reward here, and I am afraid that I can't pay it back, so I can only add 3 chapters. In the future, I will perform a daily performance of 10,000 for the Torch Brother. Secondly, some negative comments will be deleted. Some suggestions and comments will be revised and deleted after revision. In the early stage, I wrote a plot that was not popular, and it is gone, whether it is chapters or comments. Since the chapters are gone, there is no need to keep comments to mislead later readers. Chapter 97: The Third Apostle Recruitment. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Roman expanded the residential area, which doubled the amount of work. However, everyone seemed to be enjoying it and didn't feel tired at all. Working for the master and working for yourself are two different things. What's more, you don't have to eat their food while working, but you can eat the master's food. That makes the efficiency even higher. Roman didn't care. He worked as much as he ate. He was not afraid of eating too much, but he was afraid of not being able to eat enough. After confirming Morey's reliability, Roman no longer worried about whether he could dig iron or quickly. He wanted to continue to consolidate the foundation of Siggy Town. With a solid foundation, he could do everything with ease. Without a solid foundation, even the slightest order would be constrained. Why would a farmer and slave who didn't have enough food, warm clothes, and no place to live listen to you? Roman needed a group that could help him show his talents instead of dragging him down everywhere. These people must have strong cohesion and obedience, and be able to complete his instructions more quickly. For this reason, Roman prepared to recruit apostles for the third time. Each time he recruited apostles, it was based on a period of rapid population growth. Now, with more than 600 slaves, the population of Siggy Town has exceeded 3,000. They are of high quality and are a soil that can produce excellent apostles, and this time, He increased the number of recruitments to 30 draws. Roman sat on the main seat in the hall. My apostle, respond to me. That the chaotic and misty recruitment pool flickered with 3,000 glimmers, like many fireflies dancing without any rules. Roman's recruitment pool was like an invisible big hand. Many glimmers flickered, and the gray pool rippled a little. Swish. Then, 10 glimmers simultaneously went upstream from the deepest layer, like a comet hitting the moon, and then steadily suspended above the recruitment pool. Thump. 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 The blue light dissipated, and a middle-aged knight with a handsome appearance and vicissitudes of eyes emerged on the surface of a card. He was covered in blood, holding a bloody knight's sword in his left hand, and holding a blackened silver necklace in his right hand. He was staring at the void in a daze. 3-star Dick, can be given an apostle code, attack, C-, defense, E+, speed, D, constitution, E+, energy, C-, talent. Torrent glory greatly increased combat power in special state. Skill 1, experience proficient in combat skills. Skill 2, knight combat skills increased damage. Dick's panel surprised Roman, both attack and energy were C-level. Dick is now at least a 3rd-level knight, considering that he has been living in seclusion in the mountains for 10 years. His body has suffered serious damage and his state is constantly declining. His defense and constitution are E-level, while his attack and energy are C-level. The strength and weakness attributes are really far apart. This shows that Dick was very likely a 4th-level or 5th-level knight in his prime. When Roman didn't have extraordinary resources, he could only take care of him in terms of diet. I hope Dick can make up for his depleted body, but the hope is slim. His age is starting to decline. Roman focused his attention on the subsequent apostle cards. Ding. Ding. 2-star Lux, can be given an apostle code, attack, D-, defense, E+, speed, E, constitution, E+, energy, E+, talent, persistence, improved endurance and resistance. First skill, forging, mastery of blacksmith skills. Roman looked at Lux's card with a look of embarrassment. Okay, 2 stars are not a loss. Ding. 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 3-star Ruto, can be given an apostle code, attack, D-, defense, E, speed, E, constitution, D-, energy, E+. Talent, sustainability, endurance improvement. Skill 1, hammering, forging skill mastery. Skill 2, enchanting skills, can forge extraordinary weapons. Fuck. 3-star Blood Prophet. If the appearance of Dick and Lux was within Roman's expectations, then this young apostle named Ruto was the biggest surprise in this 10-draw draw. In fact, Roman also had an impression of Ruto. He was the blacksmith among this batch of slaves, and he was worth a lot of money, and such a skilled person would hardly be mixed in with ordinary slaves. The price alone was 15 gold coins, which was equivalent to more than 100 ordinary slaves, and Morey gave him the cost price, so even if he offered more than 20 gold coins, it was very reasonable. According to Morey's introduction, Ruto was a blacksmith apprentice of the sea fort, and his master had forged weapons for the lord of the sea fort. Later, the sea castle fell into decline, and the most famous blacksmith master of the sea castle was abducted by Lord Bai Yang, and many blacksmith apprentices became slaves of Earl Bailey. I'm afraid Earl Bailey thought these young blacksmith apprentices were of no value, so he sold them to Morey, and now they are transported to the town of Sji. But when Roman saw that Ruto was a 3-star apostle and Ruto's second skill, he knew that Earl Bailey had made a mistake. This blacksmith apprentice was probably hiding his skills, and his craftsmanship might be comparable to some skilled old blacksmiths. There's no need to rush about Ruto's arrangement for the time being. Roman placed him in the blacksmith shop of Lax a few days ago. Such an outstanding person will sooner or later come to the fore. Roman took a simple look at each apostle and didn't pay much attention to it. He enthusiastically performed the second 10-draw. Ding. Ding. 2-star Yagi, can be given an apostle code, attack, E, defense, E, speed, E+, constitution, E, energy, E. Talent, distraction, 2 task. Skill 1, herding, basic livestock skills. Ding. 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 3-star Nellie, can be given an apostle code, attack, E-, defense, E-, speed, E+, constitution, E, energy, E+, talent, affinity with water, like a fish in water. Skill 1, diving, dive into the water flexibly and freely. Skill 2, breathing, can breathe weakly in the water. This time, the 10 draw also delivered, and there is another biggest surprise. Yagi can be exiled to the livestock shed and become a qualified livestock breeder. Roman was a little confused by Nellie's numerical talent and skills. Although this is a fantasy world, humans have not evolved to the point of breathing in water. Didn't they take him with them when they evolved? Roman thought about it and used up his last 10 consecutive draws, just heard a swish. All the members were bleached, probably because the first 20 draws overdrew their luck, so the last 10 consecutive draws were so bleak, with only one 2-star apostle, and this result made Roman's eyes twitch. He couldn't help but call Guile over. The girl was playing in the water by the river. When she heard the maid calling her, she returned to the origin manor in confusion. Then Guile heard Roman say this to her. "Guile, do you hate me? Why are you so stubborn? Do you have to stay in the pool? You think I did something wrong, can't I change it?" Chapter 98 Nellie. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Guile was stunned at first. A panicked expression appeared on her face, and she became at a loss. After he noticed this, he had to restrain his resentment, waved his hand, asked Guile to come over, and stroked her wet hair with his fingers. Roman's soft voice had a strange magnetism, saying, "Don't be afraid, if there is anything unhappy, tell me in time. You are my close servant, the person closest to me, and I don't want you to suppress those dissatisfied emotions in your heart." He valued Guile's potential stock very much, and he spoke softly, full of consideration and care. Guile's unfounded fear quickly subsided. She shook her head gently. What else was there to be dissatisfied about? Her status in the manor was so high, second only to Roman, and those who were at the same level as her also took good care of her, so that she had no worries at such a young age. If there was anything to say, no, it was already very good. I am satisfied just to see Master Roman every day, she whispered, as soft as a mosquito. After hearing this, Roman began to smile. Behind the false smile, a well-shaped angry mark appeared on his forehead. So why don't you jump out of the pool? Roman's expression management was in place, and Guiler didn't notice it. Now everyone in Stur town is busy as a dog, only Guiler is free, and at most she attends Hans and Gummon's literacy class every day. Raising a little girl is not a burden for him, but not everyone is qualified to be his close servant. Roman has high hopes for Guiler, but he is very upset that he hasn't fished her out yet. I really want to see Guiler's panel. He is more rational. Although he is utilitarian, he doesn't blame Guiler for the problem. Now he is somewhat suspicious whether there is a potential guarantee mechanism in the recruitment pool, which is holding back for him. He just drew 30 cards, and now he still has 115 resources left. If he uses all of them, he wonders if he can draw Guiler. Forget it, don't get too carried away with drawing cards, otherwise, when the population of Seg Town continues to increase, he will have no resources to recruit. Go and have fun. Roman kept a smiling expression. He has many faces, and his attitude towards his apostles and potential apostles has always been good, so he tries to keep a gentle attitude, but he has no patience for those ordinary subjects. He points at their noses and calls them idiots 8 times a day. Guiler didn't notice the change in Roman's attitude, but just felt that Roman was getting more friendly for no reason. She was young and had a rough and turbulent past, but she didn't know that people were treacherous, and didn't understand why Roman took care of her in every way, just thinking that it was the right thing for a valet, but in fact, she didn't understand the responsibilities and obligations of a valet. Guiler ran out of the manor hall like a happy bird, almost bumping into Seth. The deacon was not harsh on Guile. In his opinion, Roman's raising witches was his hobby, whether it was public or private. Just treat it as private. He should not interfere in Roman's private life. He has always been sensible on this point, and Roman looked at Guile's back and couldn't help shaking his head slightly. He didn't take this issue to heart. As long as it was not a mistake in the route, Roman could forgive all their behaviors. He had patience and time to forgive and correct the apostles' childish thoughts, because he would always watch their growth, tolerate their ignorance, guide them forward, and make them from weak to strong, from fragile to strong. This is what he should bear as a destiny. Imagine what is more pleasant than raising people, Roman said to Seth. Among the slaves coming from the sea fort, there is a Nellie. You go and call her over. Yes. Seth turned around and went out before he could stand firm, and put the thick parchment on the table in front of Roman. Roman picked up the thick parchment and found it was an account book, which recorded in detail the total expenditure of buying slaves in Stir Town, a total of 332 gold coins. If it weren't for the good trade development in Stir Town these days, he would not be able to take out the money and would have to mortgage the split armor bow. On average, 1 gold coin was used to buy 2 slaves, and the price was sky high, but those special craftsmen at least accounted for the majority of the price. In fact, Morey sold this batch of slaves to Stir Town at cost price. At most he charged for food expenses. He did not make any profit, did not count transportation costs and labor costs, and even did not count taxes, otherwise the price would at least soar to more than 500 gold coins. Whether it could be sold was another matter. Only Stir Town had such a large slave shortage. Apart from other things, Morey would find it difficult to find a suitable buyer for the blacksmith Rudo alone. One is that the stable territory ruled by the nobles for a long time does not lack blacksmiths, and they develop self-sufficiency, which is in line with the current situation. Rudo went there to compete with the local blacksmiths for business. It can only be sold to young nobles who have just been enthroned, have no territory, and are in urgent need of development. They are in a similar situation to Roman, lacking various resources, especially professionals. However, this is the second reason: the price of blacksmiths is too high. Roman's belongings at the beginning of the game are only more than 20 gold coins. How can he afford to buy a blacksmith slave? If you can afford it, why don't you trade directly with other nobles from other territories and get a non-slave blacksmith at a lower price? Even if he is just an apprentice, he should become a qualified blacksmith after working for a few more years, and a territory is built annually. The identity of a slave is not important. He is a highly skilled person, but he has become a slave for a while. Do you really treat him as an animal? Sooner or later, he will be free. This is also the idea of most nobles. Everyone has connections and connections. If there is a shortage of labor, they will migrate labor from the territory of familiar nobles. If there is a lack of various craftsmen, they will recruit industry craftsmen from the city, give them various preferential treatments, tax exemptions and in-kind subsidies, and let them settle down in the new territory. Which normal noble relies on buying slaves to develop their territory? The stability of slaves is naturally worse than that of free people, and improving their treatment is a loss-making thing. Soon, Seth brought Nellie to the Origin Manor. Roman observed the girl in front of him. She should be an adult. Long blue hair, blue eyes, thick and curled eyelashes, coordinated facial features, and fair skin. Her figure was curvy and her waist was as slender as a water snake. Her clothes were simple and dirty, but they couldn't hide her natural beauty. Her skin was not rough, but rather delicate. Undoubtedly, she was a real young beauty, and her price was definitely not cheap. Roman didn't know whether to thank Morey for sending him a 3-star apostle, or whether he should be disgusted that if Nellie wasn't a 3-star apostle, she would definitely not be as good as a dozen or 20 young and strong laborers. When Seth called her over, Nellie was busy at the dining camp. She looked quite eye-catching, but there was a shortage of manpower in Siggy Town. Even if the Valkyrie from the Legend of the North Ice came, she would have to move bricks and build walls. A Valkyrie could at least replace 10 young and strong men. Nellie was obviously not a strong Valkyrie. Her outstanding appearance exempted her from the physical labor of moving bricks and mud, but she couldn't escape the suffering of smoke and fire. She was assigned to the big kitchen to prepare meals for everyone. When Seth called her over, Nellie was chopping wood and cooking in the hot sun, sweating profusely. When she learned that Lord Roman was looking for her, she wiped her face and hurried over. Obviously she didn't wipe it clean. Roman saw a gray mark on her left cheek, and the sweat on her cheek spread the gray mark everywhere. Chapter 99: The Last Sea Fortress Lord. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Roman watched Nellie for a long time. He didn't see anything special, but the magical talent of breathing underwater and being as comfortable as a fish in water should not be fake. He felt that Nellie was related to a witch and had awakened certain innate spells, but he didn't think it was the case because Nellie's 5-dimensional attributes were average and she didn't look like a spell caster. Roman didn't notice anything special about Nellie. He broke the silence and asked directly, "Are you from Sea Castle?" Nellie is not tall, but her body is very well proportioned, with long legs and a thin waist. She has the potential of a model, and her skin is extremely fair and delicate, she replied. Yes, my lord. I thought the residents of Sea Castle were a little dark. Roman added. Most of the slaves brought over by Morey have been blown by the sea breeze all year round. They have rough features and darker skin colors. The same is true for Ka and Sana, whose skin is a healthy wheat color, Nellie said. The skin of some Sea Castle people can withstand the tempering of the sea breeze. Sea Castle belongs to the Black Iron Kingdom and the Kingdom of Iceland, and who it belongs to depends on the choice of the Lord of the Sea Castle, although Roman believed that there were 7 kingdoms on this land, but this concept has always been vague. If anyone thinks that the 7 kingdoms divide the entire land carefully and draw clear-cut national boundaries like dividing a cake, they are completely wrong. It would be great if the 7 royal families' direct jurisdictions combined could occupy 10% of the entire land. In fact, it should be less than 5%, not counting the islands. The rest of the land belongs to the princes. The king has a very high status, but has very little control over the entire kingdom. If the border nobles don't hate you, then the king has nothing to do. They just don't listen to you, but they are not rebelling. Unless the king has a strong character or is driven by political interests, there is no need to deploy troops and generals to show the king's power. Morey stayed in Sig Town for many days and told Roman about the specific situation of Sea Castle. That narrow stretch of coast is called the Dust Boa Coast, winding and rolling, thousands of miles long. Like a giant python lying on its body and sleeping soundly, its body separates the land. And the Sea Castle is located at the end of the Dust Python Coast. The tip of the Dust Python's tail smashed into the sea, and a steep mountain range rose up from the deep sea. Its ends are raised high, so the terrain becomes higher and the road becomes narrower as you advance. At the end, the cliff is 100 meters above the sea. The cliff is as sharp as a chip, and the rough white waves below are beating hard against the hard rock wall day and night, eroding the mountain. The unknown ancestors of the Sea Castle came to the end of the Dust Serpent Coast and built the tall sea castle that gave them their name. The Dust Python's tail is raised high, and large beaches emerge on both sides of the land. It faces the sea on 3 sides and is connected to the town on the south side. It has access to abundant marine resources and convenient transportation. It can advance and attack and retreat and defend, making it easy to rule. For more than 100 years, the conquerors swept across the entire land with their swords. The Lord of the Sea Castle voluntarily surrendered, otherwise the conqueror's army would probably be defeated in the Sea Castle. The owners of sea castles throughout the ages believed that they had the blood of the gods flowing in their bodies and could hear the call from the depths of the ocean in their sleep. Usually after they abdicated in old age, they would cross the sea in a canoe, and the tide would lead them to where they should go. Roman asked Nellie, I heard that the Lord of Sea Castle is the descendant of the ocean. Nellie blinked. I can't answer your question. Only the Lord of Sea Castle is qualified. She was born in such an environment and was accustomed to those distant legends, but I'm afraid the people on land don't think so, especially the nobles on land. The fighting knights know nothing about the vast ocean. Nellie didn't want to offend her current master, so she had to avoid talking about it. Do you also have the blood of the Lord of Sea Castle in your body? Nellie pursed her lips. Her nose bridge was straight, her blue eyes were as deep as the ocean, and her facial features were unusually three-dimensional. This appearance was unique to ordinary people. Perhaps, sir, this is not something that a servant like me should know. As you know, there is only one Lord of the Sea Castle. Roman felt that although the Lord of the Sea Castle had lost his heirs, his bloodline had not been cut off. That land had prospered after all, and each generation of Lords of the Sea Castle must have produced more than one heir. However, there was only one Lord of the Sea Castle, and he did not follow the rules. Primogeniture, the remaining heirs either married other nobles or became commoners, with mixed bloodlines. Therefore, some residents of sea forts are rather strange. Their skin is like fish scales, which can resist the abrasion of sea wind and the erosion of salt and alkali. They are natural darlings of the ocean. He looked at Nellie and said, Are there many seafort people like you who come to Sig Town? Upon hearing this, Nellie immediately straightened her tall breasts, exuding the charm of a beautiful woman. She said to Roman confidently, My lord, I swear you couldn't have chosen a more beautiful slave than me. Roman naturally believed this. If there was one more beautiful slave like Nellie, Siggy Town would spend at least a dozen more gold coins. If the whole ship was full of slaves like this, he would have to smash Morey's head in with the ledger, "I am a slave to work. Not a slave to be fucked." Roman's attitude toward Nellie was very good, as if he was chatting about something ordinary. "What did you do in Sea Castle before? Where is your family?" "My father is a shipwright, my mother can sew fishing nets and do some work, and I have 2 younger brothers and a younger sister." Nellie's face was a little sad. Although it was mediocre, it was beautiful. Until the lord of the Sea Castle died of illness, they lost their lord and could not choose a qualified successor. In modern times, the lord of the Sea Castle has few descendants, and now it is even extinct. The Sea Castle's chief steward and the guards have been arguing about this. They had to find a master from the bloodline of the nobles who intermarried with the Sea Castle, but this decision also brought a devastating disaster to the Sea Castle. The gates of the Sea Castle were wide open, and Earl Bailey and Lord Poplar plundered everything that could be called wealth in the Sea Castle, including her. "What about you?" Nellie bit her lip. "I am the maid of the Lord of the Sea Castle." Roman was not surprised by this answer. Nellie obviously often dealt with nobles, so she responded appropriately, with a confident expression, and knew how to get his favor. Roman put his elbow on the armrest. "Tell me in detail." Nellie didn't know where to start, so she had to tell everything. That experience could not be concealed. God knows how much information the slave trader named Morey told Roman. "I became the maid of the Lord of the Sea Castle when I was 12 years old, and served Lord Dill with other girls. Lord Dill was not in good health, so he chose us to be his maids for the succession issue. He promised that when he recovered, he would let us bear the next Lord of the Sea Castle for him. But he failed to recover. Sometimes he couldn't even stand up, so he could only lie in bed, and slept most of the time. His body was dragged down by the disease, and his personality became more and more weird. Sometimes he would fall into hysterical rage while sleeping, as if he had a nightmare." Nellie recalled the gloomy experience that seemed to secrete some kind of sticky tide from her mind. At that time, she and other maids took care of the weak lord of the Sea Castle on the sickbed day and night. If it were in the past, Dill would definitely not be qualified to be the lord of the Sea Castle, but Dill's father's father only gave birth to Dill's father, and Dill's father only gave birth to Dill. In the past few decades, the lord of the Sea Castle has been passed down for 3 generations, and the inheritance has become increasingly fragile. It was like a seed of some disease, and the seedlings it nurtured were slender and weak. She still remembered Dill's pale and thin face. He couldn't eat anything. The blood coral was completely useless to him. He could only rely on the warm and cool energy contained in the pearl powder to maintain his life. For this, he consumed a high-quality pearl every day, but the sieve could not hold water. His body became weaker and weaker in the dry air, and sometimes he couldn't even breathe. Like a severe asthma patient or a fish living on land. They called the disease the Black Plague, a terrible disease from the depths of the ocean. It was rumored that the conqueror was also infected with the Black Plague. Dill asked the sea fort steward more than once to put him into the sea and let the ocean current take him away. But this unreasonable request was rejected by the sea fort steward. Humans would only drown in the sea, and the ocean current would only take away a corpse. Dill became furious and erratic. He would have nightmares when he was sleeping and make some shrill and sharp inhuman roars. When he was awake, he was like a mad dog, smashing everything he could catch, using crazy actions to vent his repressed and depressed emotions, and also consuming his already limited vitality. They were Dill's maids, and were implicated because of this. They needed to clean up the mess all the time. They were extremely scared and prayed to the ocean gods to restore the health of the master of the sea fort. He waved his arms with the strength of a 3 or 4-year-old child, and could not hurt them, but he was still the master of the sea fort, and he had many ways to torture others to death, but Dill never hurt them. He was not tyrannical, especially his attitude towards the maids was extremely kind, and he often called them dear sisters and my blood relatives in a soft voice. He said that the people of the sea fort had the same blood flowing in their bodies, which was the secret power from the deep sea, and that power prompted them to dream of the same scenery. But none of the descendants of the sea fort can do it now. They have the same ancestors, but this blood has been constantly diluted since they came to land. If you want to maintain pure blood, you must combine with those who are connected by blood, and perhaps you can breed a blood of atavism. He said that his bloodline is not pure, and he is also a mixed people. Their status should be the same. If he can become the master of the sea fort, then any mate here is also qualified, but who made his father have only him as his heir? Perhaps the inheritance will end with his generation, and the sea fort will lose the favor of the ocean from then on. This is fate. The life of the dust python has come to an end, and the sea fort located at the tip of the dust python's tail has also come to an end. The ocean has lost a blocker, and the future will become more turbulent and unstoppable. At that time, even the demons will have to avoid its edge, but she and the maid felt that Lord Dill had not woken up from the nightmare, and the master of the sea fort was talking in his sleep. Her father and mother were both fair-skinned people of the sea fort, and she was just a person of the sea fort, and she could not become the master of the sea fort. Dill took her hand and made her sit on the bed that smelled of illness. He sent her parents to prove what she saw. He traced her bloodline, looked through various materials, and even found many old men in the sea fort who had lived for 100 years. Finally, he came to the conclusion, she was a descendant of the lord of the sea fort who followed the conqueror on an expedition 100 years ago. Her father 5 generations ago and Lord Dill's father 6 generations ago were the same person. They were real blood relatives. She should be the aunt or aunt of the current lord of the sea fort. Later, Dick died in pain. He died very hastily, like a person who drowned on land. When he crossed the sea alone with the wooden boat, the sky was overcast, and the coast rolled up with unprecedented surging waves, rumbling against the mountain. The indestructible cliff collapsed, and a hollow appeared under the cliff. Rolling rocks fell into the sea, and the tip of the dust python's tail became more and more raised. The sea swallowed the remains of the last master of the sea fortress with a cry.